Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the book launch for Ashley Elizabeth's A Family Thing. I am your host for the evening, Nicole Tallman, and I'm representing Redacted Books, which is an imprint of ELJ Editions. And I am joined by two amazing featured readers in addition to our star Ashley. We have Jose Hernandez Diaz and we have Rita Mukherjee. And unfortunately, Taylor Bias was unable to join us. I'm so sorry, but we'll find a way to make her present during this very special reading. And I just want to give you a quick run of show before we jump in. Our featured readers will read between 10 to 15 minutes, whatever they feel. I'm not going to sit there with my stopwatch and, be timing you. Just go with the flow, what feels good to you. We're so grateful for your time. So we'll have Jose kick us off, and then we'll have Rita read, and then we will have Ashley read. Um, and then we're going to reserve a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, just some conversation. Ashley made it very clear to me that she wanted this to be like friends and family reading. This is not super formal. Let's be loose. Let's have fun. Let's really enjoy this and launch Ashley's very beautiful book into the world. I have to tell you, I am so honored to be here and to have had the privilege of editing this book. I was going through the queue of manuscripts, and I'm Redacted book series is focused on telling stories that are difficult to tell. And when I read Ashley's manuscript, I was in tears. I really was through so much of it. And I saw so much beauty there. I mean, really, I had a very light hand in editing. Ashley really just knocked it out of the park. And I just made some very general suggestions, which she was very gracious about. And we have this beautiful book, A Family Thing, that we are launching today. So, Ashley, this launch is in honor of you. Obviously, you and your beautiful debut book, A Family Thing. It is available through Redacted Books. I will be plugging into the chat links to books for our featured readers. And also, I'm not going to read bios because I kind of feel like it's a little uptight, but I'm going to drop them in the chat because I want you to know who Ashley is, who Jose is, who Rita is, because they're all very important people. Okay. And I would like you to buy your books if you could afford to do so. If you do not have the means, maybe order a copy for your library. That's always appreciated too. We love you and your support. So to kick us off, I am going to welcome the amazing Jose Hernandez Diaz.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Ashley, for the invite, for asking me to blurb your collection, your exciting collection. I think it's riveting, and I love the language, the musicality, the stylistic choices, and the necessary nature of it. I think it's relevant and just an important book that everyone should go get a copy of, definitely. So thanks again for the invite. This is my first day here on the East Coast, which I just found out Knoxville is part of the Eastern time zone. So getting used to the time adjustment and the flight yesterday, which was an ordeal. But it's great to be here. I'm going to kick it off reading poems from my collections. And once again, thanks everyone for being here, for uniting in poetry, and poetry has kind of saved my life. So I just always appreciate being around other people who can appreciate this art and this craft. And I often tell people, being a poet is kind of like being like a famous ballerina or something. Like, not everybody understands what you're doing, but the small group that appreciate it, it's almost like a family or something. So I'm going to start off by reading a prose poem, which is also an ode. It's called Ode to the Piñata, and is published in Tri-Quarterly. And it's in my forthcoming collection, Portrait of the Artist as a Brown Man. Ode to the Piñata. You're always there for me, dear Piñata. Every year you greet me when I need you most. When I'm 1 year closer to death, you remind me to take a second and enjoy sweet dulces. You have a deep philosophy. Swing, swing harder, eat candy. What utter wisdom. Sartre himself would be proud. Piñata, Piñata, Your colors are as majestic as a rainbow swaying in the sky. Sure, I'm fully grown and don't need you anymore, but you bring me happiness, and damn it, that's important. No, I don't eat candy anymore, but a chocolate or two won't hurt. Besides, seeing my sobrinos run to get scattered dulces is worth any price or trouble. Maybe I will put a bouquet of carnations inside you, sweet piñata. Maybe a dozen tacos de asada al pastor. All kidding aside, you've been in our familia since the beginning, even before Los Abuelitos. I know you'll stick around till the end, when the merry world explodes like a spinning piñata. Um, so that was from a forthcoming collection. This next one is a from Bad Mexican, Bad American, my current collection, my first full length collection. Um, I had a chapbook before that, The Fire Eater. I know people would always ask me, when is your book coming out? When is your book coming out? Um, it was kind of funny because I had an NEA before I had any chapbook or a book. So it was just a long process. And then all of a sudden they kind of just piled up to the point where this week I just signed a contract for my next book, or the third book down the line, The Lighthouse Tattoo. Um, so so if you're out there submitting your manuscript, I know it can be a process and a long process and frustrating, and just try to keep the hope alive. And for me, at least, um, the time was necessary, and I'm actually kind of glad that it didn't get picked up earlier. And so just hang in there. And this one is called The Pocha with the Adelita Tattoo. I fell in love with the pocha with the Adelita tattoo. She's so cultured and idiosyncratic. Her hair is up in a bun. She wears heels with blue jeans, red lipstick. Her tattoo is Dia de los Muertos and Mexican Revolutionary themed. Her eyes are pocha light brown like honey. I don't know if she speaks Spanish. If she does, it's probably broken like mine. The pocha with an Adelita tattoo and I go on the date to a local taco shop. We talk about music, art, and poetry. We have a few cocktails and eat tacos. At the end of the night, I ask her about her tattoo. She says she got it because it represents her Mexican heritage and because Las Adelitas were badass women. I tell her it's lovely and lean in for a kiss. So so yeah, just thanks everyone for being here. It's always great to unite with poetry. There's a big crowd, so it's exciting to support up and coming poets and be in community. This next one um, is another prose poem, and it's called "The Coyote Who Was Once a Dragon." A rugged coyote wandered close by the oceanside communities. Tired, it sat beneath the palm tree and took a nap. It dreamed of its former life as a medieval dragon. It had conquered many rustic lands as a fierce dragon. Now, the lonesome coyote hardly ever sang anymore. Most of the city slickers didn't realize the coyote could sing romantic Spanish ballads, but it hadn't sung a romantic song since it lost its beloved coyote partner. The coyote's partner passed away during a treacherous earthquake that shook the world like a piñata. For now, the coyote slept peacefully beneath the mangy palm tree. The waves in the distance sounded like a familiar lullaby. And I actually forget which collection this one is in, so that's why I didn't mention it. But it gets like that sometimes. Um, so I'm going to read one more. It's a prose poem and an ode together. Thanks again, Ashley, for the invite. It was an honor to blurb your collection. This one is actually in the South Florida Poetry Journal this month. It was published last week, and it's called Ode to the Surreal Prose Poem. And this one is in like my current work in progress manuscript. Ode to the Surreal Prose Poem. You refuse to conform, don't you? Why can't you just be normal? Just kidding. You're perfect the way you are. Michael Jordan is poetry, but you are Dennis Rodman. Take us to the dream world, the subconscious, another dimension, space, another time period, magic, dragons, centaurs. I want to read you to escape, to laugh, to cry, all of it. One day you will be mainstream. One day, tomorrow will be the past. All is possible. All is welcome. Take me away. Thank you.
Jose, it's always an honor to hear you read. Thank you so much for being here tonight and reading from your lovely collections and poems. And shout out to South Florida Poetry Journal. I see Michael Mack and Omara in the house too. So, Michael, we love you. Our next reader is the amazingly wonderful, talented, beautiful Rita Mukherjee. Please join me in giving her a warm welcome.
Hey, it's your messy queen dialing in from Worcester, Massachusetts. Happy to be here, honored to be here. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Jose. I'm so joyful because tonight it's all in the family, right? It's a family thing. Hey, Liz Flo, what's up? Mwah. It's so joyful anytime that we see nothing but familiar names and faces, right? But also new faces and new names are always welcome. It's great. Hey, Zora. I love it. All the besties are coming through. Happy to see you. Hey, Donna. Also, Jenny, I know you're in here somewhere. We missing you, girl. We're missing you. I'm gonna do something a little bit non-traditional because y'all know how I am. And if you don't me, hi. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Rita Mukherjee. I'm a professor by day, agent of chaos by night. I'm holding Jose's The Fire Eater. This is one of his chaps in my hand, and we are living in a really dire time. If you're in the U.S., like this is really scary and serious. I would just want to read something that gives me a lot of energy and hope and fuel. So I want to open with actually one of Jose's poems. It's called The Man and the Antlers. A man picked wild berries in the forest, ate them, and suddenly grew antlers. He was shocked. He ran around in circles. Why? Why? Then he saw a small creek. He looked into the water. He saw the antlers in the reflection, strong and sharp. Why me? Why me? He said. Then a bear approached him. He was startled for a moment, but then charged at the bear with force. Just something for us to ruminate on. We all know
Lovely
me.
reading. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Oh my gosh, joyful. It's so, again, it's just so exciting to be in community with people whose work I love and I've read for a really long time. For Ashley's reading tonight, I want to share with you a poem about a Black woman who fundamentally shaped my consciousness. I got to study at my master's at Temple University. One of my professors was a Black Panther, like an OG Black Panther. And this is a poem I wrote about her and her experience. It's called, oh, by the way, it's in my original collection. I have my blur filter on, so it's kind of weird because it like blurs my book. But my book is False Offering. Buy it from bookshop.org or your local friendly neighborhood bookstore. This is called Lesson from the Oracle Who Had Seen Too Much. It's for Regina Jenkins. For a time, my Professor Regina was one of the lost women trudging up and down Broad Street. You've seen the type. An ageless person in a black down coat, too hot for the present weather, the type that prays out loud to lost gods for a fix or even just a lemonade. The type that screams as if waking from a nightmare, the type you avoid eye contact with on the subway. Regina kept pace during the day and slept in houses of sex and crack after dark, but past the broken bottles and plastic cups, up the rotted stairs soured with piss and butane, she laid in dank rooms and thought of greater things. She considered the pyramids and how they aligned. Beneath the stars, she scrawled prayers to Tahuti on gum wrappers and dropped them in fountains across the city. She channeled Queen Nzinga, leading her troops to battle the Portuguese. She dreamt of James Brown on stage, camel walking, euphoric. Regina and the broad street walkers saw Philadelphia grow wicked. Scores of cops leering on side streets, cuffing panhandlers, pulling out batons to bust protester knees. All this before the bombing of the house on Osage Street. In her fury with time, Regina found like minds. They wore leather and rolled their hair with wax. But for all the big guns, raised fists, and dreads, the Panthers were a brotherhood, not a coven. And she still had many questions hanging in the air. Regina stays in that broken city as a protector, a keeper of stories, light and dark. She won't talk to cops, but the media is the specter she hates the most. She told me once in a voice like bent steel never to watch the news before bed, that it leaves foul residue in the mind. Leaning close, she said, do not take that filth in with you to the dream world. If you do, it will live in your body and grow like a sickness. Though I do my best to listen with or without the news, poison swims in my mind all day and all night. Thank you. Thank you. I am very taken with people who write like monologues or form-based poems and don't resort to this weird like middle English vernacular. Like if you follow me on Twitter, I'm always confused because AI and bots, like everyone's like, oh, they're taking our jobs. I'm like, if you ask the robot to write a poem, it's in like Shakespearean, like iambic pentameter rhyme verse. I mean, literally no one in this call, I know most of y'all's work, no one writes that way. Our jobs are fine. Can we calm down? Like, can we just take a beat? Like, no one's like, oh, avast ye, like, no, sorry, no one writes like that. So this is monologue for Wild Sprouted Onion. Suji Kwok Kim wrote the poem that this is based off of, which is monologue for an onion. But this is for a Wild Sprouted Onion. This is just like a middle finger to AI because they can't do what we do, and we shouldn't dignify them with a response. Soon there will be only noise. An eruption of scent sharp like blood you've never known. Tears like these. My curse is subtle, as is the curse of my child, who you will bury shallow in the ground without a second thought. This green girl, bursting from my chest, impossible to ignore, precious fruit of the lawn, I teach her to whisper to the grass, to coax chives from plain blades, so our pungent army may grow strong. What a word, blade. The name of our death, the instrument of our extinction, inevitable as night. Soon it will come for you, but before that day, spread your arms, unleash hell. Cool, 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 cool. Sofla Pojo, South Florida Poetry Journal, has already come up. Jose, I think we're in the same issue, but I'm not 100% sure of that. But I want to read y'all one of my pieces from a summer issue. I go to a place of humor because that's a coping mechanism. And my students really love anytime I'm like dragging millennials such as myself. So one time for all us millennials. This is Litany of Bad Habits, Millennial Edition. Still midnight snacking, still drinking, and overcommitting, and overspending, and oversleeping, still biting the crust off tubes of super glue instead of cutting the tip off with a knife or scissors, still picking fights with strangers online, still running with said scissors, still cursing, still letting my glasses slide down my nose, still hot tempered, still largely unknown, still figuring out my eyebrows, still filling tights up to my bra, though the waistband pinches, still calling women I hate a bunch of looking ass bitches, still joking about work-life balance, instead of leaving for a job that might love me back, sit pick scabs once the wounds lie flat, still shopping for a god and blaming stars for problems, still using illicit drugs, still dreaming of the heiress in a turquoise necklace, still not speaking to her and probably never will, simply out of spite, still sleeping in my makeup, still restless, still can't tell if there's a fruit fly infestation or if this time around I just died in the night. Thanks. Let's do one more. Let's do one from the book. We'll do Hard Water. I think something I've really learned from reading Ashley Elizabeth's collection is that in communities of color, prioritizing mental health is still a really fraught issue, and we need to just decide today that conversation is done. I know that's easier said. I know that there are a lot of families and elders who are not understanding that these are valid concerns, but I just want us to make a pledge to one another that no matter what happens in the blood family circuit, we will be family. We will look after one another, and nothing can replace your mind. So get your mind right first, then you can care for one another. Thank you again for tuning in tonight. This will be my last poem, Hard Water. My sister thinks people follow her. So my parents take her to a ward where her roommate is a hornet. At lunch, a man frowns into a payphone for ages, shakes my father's hand, and welcomes him to the CIA. No one is young. Everyone is white. Most of the women are there to detox. I wonder who comes to collect them when they check out. The place is loud. A book, stuffed animals, and lip balm. The totems on my sister's nightstand are all I think of now, 1,000 miles away from her. I learn that the water is hard and makes her skin flake at the scalp for weeks. On the phone, she sounds parched. And I remember her voice high and breathless when we get off stage from the Nutcracker, how I'd squeeze the warm orb of her shoulder and reapply her lipstick for photos. We'd eat fruit in the car after and doze off chatting. Now I wonder if she gets any sleep at all. In a luckless turn, my sister's arms and legs inflate with fluid and slog at her sides as she rolls onto the bed. It's probably from the lithium. I send her packages of weed and body lotion, the ladder of flimsy discomfort. I daydream of our midnight snacks, mimosas, and brie, and pray at God's to be to fling this curse on someone else. Please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita, for your beautiful reading, for your energy, for your support and everything you bring to the community. You really are a blessing and a treasure. Uh, Ashley, I know Taylor really wanted to be here. So I'm going to take this moment to just hold a little bit of space and read her blurb that she wrote for your book. Um, it's a beautiful blurb. Taylor says, in Ashley Elizabeth's A Family Thing, devastating family secrets from sexual assault to inheritance troubles circle the speaker's family dynamic like a margarita's bitter salt rim. And in holding these secrets, the speaker is doubly robbed of her innocence, forced to be a sexual being first, then a peacemaking matriarch in the face of adults who failed to protect her. These poems fluctuate structurally, moving from longer pieces to 2 or 3 line bursts that punctuate this journey of reckoning with sharp breaths and gut punches. And in those waves, we are reminded that even though trauma is often a family affair, healing is a painful undertaking that must be done in exile. That is Taylor Bias, the author of I Done Clicked My Heels 3 times. I'm going to drop a link to Taylor's book in the chat as well because it is amazing. And now I am going to turn the floor over to our wonderful, beautiful star of the evening. Please join me in welcoming Ashley Elizabeth.
I'm so excited to be here. Like, thank you, Nicole, for everything over this past year. Jose, Rita, and thank you, Taylor, for when she watches this, because I'm sure she will. This book has been like a roller coaster of so many different emotions. So tonight I'm going to be reading mainly from that book, but also I'm going to like throw in like a couple of poems from Redline as well because, school family, why not? But I am gonna start with a family thing. So there's a lot that this book kind of like touches on. So many different aspects of life about growing up and dealing with parents who are ill, dealing with like familial secrets, grief, death. So I'm going to be reading kind of like a little bit from each section. And then, like I said, I'm going to go into Redline. So this first poem I'm going to read is called On Vacation, I Like My Mother. There isn't much I have inherited from my mother, except for the love of twisty cones from Dairy Queen. We get them from the mini golf place near vacation after we giggle through never getting a hole in one. It is a treat, a loser's paradise, and I'm almost not allowed to get a cone until my father says it's okay. Because we all know I will drop or spill something. I still will, actually. I take the time I need to swirl the flavors together with my tongue, start at the base to avoid sticky fingers. I almost forget my brother is here because I don't have to worry. I will not get touched because there will be a witness. And I will get attention because what else is there for my mom to do? So there's that. This next poem is called This Is Not Victimhood. I normally don't read this poem, haven't read this poem in a very long time. Like, I wrote this poem probably like around 2017, 2018-ish. So it doesn't really get much airtime. So I'm glad I have this space to read it. So this is not victimhood. I'm missing chunks of my childhood that I fill in on the spot like ad libs whenever someone asks or references a year I'm not sure I was around for. I have to ask myself what children do. Ask my students what they do. Add some nostalgic twists, like the ending of cassette tapes, the introduction of CDs and dial-up internet, and voila, my childhood is normal as anyone else's. My pain gotta be put on a pedestal to be believed. I gotta shout hashtag me too to be heard. Are you sure he did what you say he did? Are you sure he didn't? What's the perfect victim supposed to sound like anyway? Am I supposed to shy away from street lamps as to not be seen? Stutter every time I say his name? He's my brother. Explain that to my patchwork brain. So for a very long time, my brother and I have not gotten along for obvious reasons. But even like in adulthood, it's very much like I live here and he lives all the way over there. Don't talk to him, don't text him unless I like literally have to or need to get a hold of my dad, and my dad's not answering. So this poem is called Seeking. If you hear my father tell it, I've never felt safe with my mother. At age 3, I hurt myself. Mother in the next room. Like other 3-year-olds, I wail, cry, kick. My mother either does not notice or does not care to notice. I bleed and limp past her as she cackles, cradling the house phone to her ear. It is precious. Me? She claims I'm precious too. She reaches for me to stop me in my tracks. Maybe look at my boo-boo. She is a nurse after all. Or maybe to hush me without hushing me. No one can know how she is as a mother. But I shimmy away and up the stairs. I am hurt, but not like hurt, so I make it. My father is resting before work, but I am more important. So like I said before, there's been like a lot of grief in my family over the past about decade or so. I lost my grandmother when I was an undergrad, my dad's mother, and so I'm gonna read 2 poems for her. More to Vickers Road than the address. 20-minute car ride feels like an adventure, an escape to giggling without recourse or anyone saying stop. Real family lived here once. Laundry swayed on the backyard clothesline. We played tag between the sheets, then folded the sticky outside air into bathroom towels. Mrs. Bailey from next door asked if we want something sweet and cool because we are such good children. She's always baking cookies, or about to bake cookies, or just bake cookies, or doesn't want to finish her ice cream alone. We mind our manners with a no thank you, ma'am. Turn back to quick games of she loves me not, loves me more, while saffron petals settle petty arguments with older brother behind why our parents love me more. Baby cousin is too young to understand, waddles off to plop on the black graded stairs, waits for Gramps to come back, wicker basket in hand. This house holds a cared for version of me that has never been touched. We do all need a Mrs. Bailey. And like what's funny about that is both of my grandmothers, 2 completely different states. Their neighbors were named Mrs. Bailey. I find that so wild. Like they're not related or anything. It's just weird coincidence. And then so my grandmother died in 2013. In 2015 is when I like came home from undergrad, graduated, woo, yay, all the applause. Um, and I used to just drive past my grandmother's house, just because it was like on the way home. And one day I saw them like two of my uncles were cleaning out her house, and it really struck me. And like I had no idea what they did with all of her things until I think it was either earlier this year, no, probably last year, where my cousin, who I love, was posting things on the internet that like some of her stuff was for sale. So this poem is about that. On the marketplace, my cousin is selling our dead grandmother's things. 150 for dining set, 400 for king size bedroom. If I was there, if I had the space for other people's grief, for their ghosts and things, it'd be mine. But both my house and heart are too small. 400 firm for the childhood I don't want to run from. Sounds like a steal. So lots of secrets. This is on keeping the secret that I have issues. Like, and it's weird because like everyone except for my family knows that I have issues except for my family. So this doesn't help when I bed someone new and flinch when they spread my legs the wrong way. This doesn't help when I have trust issues and question every older brother I see when his sister doesn't want to hold his hand. This doesn't help when I find myself loose-lipped and with the wrong people. I don't want to forgive him, but I do, for my mother and her prized child. And so my father, sensitive and heart harvested, doesn't have a second stroke. And so this will probably be the last time I read from this collection. This is called Brain Teaser. This was also published in South Florida Poetry Journal. So love them. Love all of us. And again, thank you all for coming tonight. Like this has been so exciting. So this is Brain Teaser. My father buys me Donald Duck orange juice from Mars the days I'm homesick from school, and I almost take it for granted. He is a simple man who wants to do right by his family in the eyes of some God. He has been this way, steadfast and stubborn, for as long as I remember, for what I remember. Some things do not change. But what has is the fact I'm collecting pieces of my past like Pokemon cards, and I'm still missing more than I think. There's no reason to it. Something will just happen. Something will turn a key and I'll long repress something. I'll taste something or hear something or smell something or touch something. And I am like 6, mixing crystal hot sauce, my mac and cheese from the roost. And I'm 9 with a twisty cone in hand. And I'm 7, sweet tart wrappers littering my bedroom floor and bedside. And I'm 12 on Broadway for the first time, lights turning my head every which way as we walk. And I'm 16, mashing potatoes with my grandmother with a fork. And I'm 10 and quitting ballet. And I'm 15 and getting yelled at by my tennis coach over my weight for the 18th time, even though I've proven I can run and run and run some more, have told him suicides don't bother me none. And I'm 14, emptying my mother's drainage. And I'm 13, trying to kill myself for not the first time. And I'm 11, dancing to my Hello Kitty boombox. And I'm 9, trying to play basketball with my cousins. And I'm 5, sitting on the floor playing Mario Kart and trying to be better than him, beat him at something I can actually win. And I'm 7 again at a crab feast, barbecue, family reunion in a backyard getting torn up by mosquitoes, but every minute is so worth it. And I'm 15, smoking a black and mild on the way to the movie theater because I think it looks cool. And even cooler, I think it'll help me get my girlfriend back because she's a smoker and I want nothing more than to taste her all day. And I'm 8, on stage in a tutu with graceful arms and legs and neck because, as a ballerina, you must be fluid, moving it once and make it look easy. And I'm sick of trying to build and rebuild a life that shouldn't have been shattered by nasty hands in the first place. So I think that's all I'm gonna read from a family thing. There's so many more good poems in here though, but that's okay. Y'all just gonna have to buy the book and read it. But I'm gonna read like 2 poems from Redline. They're short poems, but this is for my students. This is for really all of them. What I've learned as an educator from my students, what my students have learned from me, what I've learned from my previous teachers, professors, faculty. If my computer would work, that would be great. That would be wonderful. Okay. This is getting on their level. I let the N-word slip real quick from my lips in my classroom. I didn't really mean nothing by it, but I get real passionate when I explain what my mama went through, when my grandmother moved north, and how this country really ain't safe for niggas, and how it connects to today, to the students in front of me. And when this happens, and I climb on a student desk, leaning forward and looking each of them in the eye, they listen. And this poem the last poem I'm going to read tonight is called Control. So a couple years ago, I lost 2 of my students, one on a field trip, the one died by suicide, unfortunately. And so I was kind of left to pick up the pieces of my kids because he was very popular. They loved him so much, both of them so much. And so this poem is for them. So this poem is called Control. My students dissected sheep hearts in science class, and I feel for the lamb plucked from the world early. Or maybe it was a sacrificial thing. After all they hear is no. When this was a self-guided activity until the end, and they got to prod around, mash, and knead things to their liking, reminding me of them begging to control their environment, to keep their phones in their pockets, to leave the classroom to work in the tower, to walk around the building without being in line, for the locks to come off the bathroom doors for the first real time. They have already lost so much. 2 friends and a handful of teachers later, we are all tongue-tied and tired. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much for coming. Thank you, Rita and Jose and Nicole. Thank you. Thank you.
I need a moment to collect myself. Oh my gosh. Okay. I was phenomenal. It's one thing to read a manuscript, and it's another thing when you hear the poet read the words, and you amaze me. You amaze me, Ashley. Thank you for the honor of editing your book. Thank you. Seriously. Wow. I can barely speak. So we have a few minutes left, and I just wanted to open the floor if there are any questions from the audience of any of our 3 readers, if you would like to ask anything about their books or their process, anything that they're working on. If you don't have questions, I can ask one, but I defer to the audience first. If you're shy and you want to pop it into the chat, I can read it, or you can raise your hand. Any questions for Ashley or Jose or Rita? Don't be shy. This is your opportunity to ask 3 amazing poets a burning question. No? Okay, well, I will ask a question because I love asking questions. Oh, wait. Jenny has a question. Wonderful question. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, so I'll ask Jose first. Can you tell me how place influences your work? You're muted, my friend.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to unmute because I was on full screen. But the question, how does place influence my work? Well, my style is my influences are kind of split between autobiographical, linear verse about my real life, being first gen Mexican American growing up in Southern California, um, back and forth between Northern Orange County, Southeast Los Angeles County. So that's kind of the first section of Bad Mexican, Bad American. If you read it, is entirely linear verse, autobiographical, and the second or the rest of it is prose poetry, um, which does also infuse Mexican American imagery and mythologies and history and cultural references. So I wouldn't say it's completely separate from um, the first half where it has the cultural references, but um, place I think I tend to right now we're dealing a lot with immigration and build a wall like always and the rhetoric from the right of just hatred and bigotry and separation and ignorance to the real history of the country, how it's built on immigration and on the treachery of slavery and the genocide of Native Americans, and so really for me, place is something about in my collections to celebrate my community, um, that we are not a nuisance or we should not be pigeonholed and we should not be um, really the we should not be the this alienated other basically so place for me is about celebrating my community. That's why I had ode to the piñata. I have ode to pan dulce, ode to the pollo asada burrito from Alberto's, ode to guisados. So like when I travel across country, I'll hear things on the radio where politicians are talking about immigration and immigrants as a nuisance and scapegoating them. That's the word I was looking for the whole time. It was like on the top. It was like on the tip of my tongue. So I hear these scapegoating things, and I want to celebrate my culture, and that's what I do with place. Oftentimes people will say, "Oh, that's ghetto," or "That's a barrio," or "That's there's graffiti and there's gangs and it's dangerous." So with me, um, what I'm doing with my work is focusing on place and the imagery to speak for itself and to celebrate it and not just romanticize it, but just sort of bring it like a microscope to Southeast Los Angeles where um, I was living before I moved out here. So yeah, I think place is something that um, is inevitable for me. And initially I thought as a prose poetry writer that I couldn't write about race all the time and place and identity, but I don't have that fortune of being able to ignore that or deny that like a lot of the other surrealist prose poets. I think for me, it's something that I will always write about and that brings inspiration and yeah, that was kind of a convoluted answer, but it's kind of something that for me, it's how I started writing poetry actually was through protest poetry and back then it was SB 1070 Arizona, and that's how I started writing poetry, just responding to a website. It was called Poets Against SB 1070, and it inspired me to write in protest to those racist laws that still manifest in this society. So yeah, thank you. Great question.
That was a beautiful question and a beautiful response. I'd like to hear from Rita next.
Could you repeat the question, please? Thank you.
What role does place play in your work?
So the only point of reference I have for where I'm from is, do you know where the do you know the office? And if people know the office, I'm like, it's 45 minutes away from that. I am from the sticks, right? Since I was a child, people have screamed at me, go back to your country. Baby, I'm from Rochester. I have nothing for you, honey. Like, people are so disappointed by that. But the reality is that, for better or for worse, we have this really wild bricolage kind of nation, and Jose can't say this because his people were actually like part of this huge chunk of land, right? He's an indigenous person to this land. Um, Same with Ashley. I'm not. I'm the weird import. And I didn't ask to be here. And frankly, I wouldn't choose here if I could choose anywhere to be. But I'm here now. So, place and space for me is always a site of jest. I'm interested in trolling. I'm interested in dunking on all of the white people and all of the really awful conservatives that told me since I was maybe 6 years old that like I was never going to be anything. And um, I think something that white people don't really understand is that if you are not white, you will be called every slur in the book, whether or not it applies to you. So since I was a child, I've been called like all manner of slurs, and um, they're not accurate. I do stand up a lot, and one of my biggest gripes is I'm like, if you're gonna call me a name, call me an accurate name. Like, come for me with accuracy. And I've never actually been dragged by a term or a nomenclature that's appropriate to like my ethnicity or my nationality. I'm like, they're like, oh, go back to your country. I'm like, baby, I'm from Rochester, right? Like, I was born in this country. I have nothing for you. If you want me to go back to my country in terms of like where I'm from, my parents are different flavors of brown. I'm Bengali and Punjabi. In this country, that means nothing to anyone. We on the census and in other different different contexts, we have to check Asian, right? That's our category, as if I'm the same as Cambodian, Chinese, Laotian, Filipino, Korean, right? Like, I think monolithic nomenclature will be the death of our society, because we do read at a sixth grade reading level nationally. Um, Place and space will always be central to what I do and what I'm interested in. I just hope that we can champion that and see that as a flex rather than a deficiency.
That's a great answer. Ashley, we're going to close it out with you. Can you talk about the role that place plays in your work?
Yeah, sure. Place. So like when I write, I normally start with place. Like there's a couple poems in a family thing. It's like, oh yeah, like I can picture this, I can see this, like this is very Baltimore. Then I have another chap coming out that I didn't mention before, that is solely about Baltimore, because when I was an undergrad, it was like I was from Baltimore meant different things to different people because I went to a predominantly white institution. Um, and so it's like when I went there, I was like, yeah, I'm like from near Baltimore, like in the county, like I'm not dangerous, don't hurt me. But now it's just like, no, I'm like literally from Baltimore. Like I live in the city. So a lot of my work, like it needs something to ground it, and that normally is place. So yeah.
That makes perfect sense. I have personally kind of a weird experience in the sense that, I mean, I'm from Michigan originally. And when I moved to Miami, it was the first time I was a minority because it is 80% Hispanic. And they're like, hey, white girl, you're the minority here. And I earned the gringa label everywhere I went. Gringa, 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 gringa. And I didn't even know what it meant at first. And then I just started to sort of, okay, well, this is, I understand where people are coming from. I am the minority here. And it really changes your perspective on things. I must say it was, I always try to encourage people to get out of the space that they were born in some way, even if it's through travel or moving, just because you learn so much more about the world. I didn't learn as much like living in France or Montreal as I did moving to Miami because it was just such a different community. And when I wrote my book Versace, that was like the first time where I really tried to figure out this journey of acceptance of myself and this different identity as a gringa because I just hadn't had to grapple with that before. So I just a lot of respect for people who are um in a position where you are not the majority. And I mean it's different being a person of color. I'm not trying to say that our experiences are similar at all, but I do want to say that I understand that it is a very difficult position to be in when you are a minority of any sort. And also I am gay, which is a minority in another way too. So anyway, I just wanted to share that I think that all of the work here is so beautiful and united in the sense that every time I read a book by Ashley, Jose, Rita, it's an experience, but I feel like especially with your writing, Ashley, and your book, I just learned so much about your identity, not just as a Black woman, but your identity as a person who had been through a very rough childhood. And I honor you so much for this beautiful, beautiful book that you wrote. I want to thank everybody for being here and sharing this space with us. I did see that there was a question in the chat about whether or not I'm accepting submissions for redacted books. And right now I am not. But ELJ editions is often open. So I would say keep your eyes on that. With redacted, it's kind of a personal thing. I only choose 2 books a year because I really want to give it my full time and my attention. And I had opened up submissions for the first 2 cycles, and then I decided I was going to curate because there were a couple of people who I wanted books from, one who had never published a book, who's a little older, and another person whose work I really admire, and I wanted to help that person get their book out into the world. So we'll be talking more about those soon, but I just wanted to respond to your question, just not at this time. So thank you everyone once again for being here. Ashley, you're amazing. Jose, you're amazing. Rita, you're amazing. Everyone here is amazing. I hope to see you again soon in some capacity. And I always end my readings for ELJ by saying, be well, everyone. Take care, be well. I love you all.